All right, we're back. Round 5, Drake Sasser, Jello Steph for Nerd Rage Gaming. Players are ready. In fact, they already drew their opening hands because they never do what we tell them. We ask them to wait. Dominick Paolercio and Travis Dahle. Let's go ahead and go down to the table. It's going to be Yawgmoth against Murktide. So slight change of things, slight change of pace. So Golgari Yawgmoth shows up again. This did win the RNG Modern Trial a couple months ago.
That was the first tournament right after the Luris ban, right? Or no, it was right before the Luris ban. And we were mentioning how there was no companions in the finals of that tournament at all. So here we see Dominick Paolercio, number 34 on the NRG leaderboard, piloting that deck here in the Modern 5K, leading off on an Ignoble Hierarch. Travis Dahl's 1-mana creature of Dragon's Rage Channeler, the response, and we'll see what Dominick's turn 2 looks like. Maybe a Grist. I think I can see a Planeswalker in hand. That'd be a good one. Very quickly tapping 3 mana is here's Grist, the Hunger Tide.
Grist is so cool. So we'll see Grist coming to play here for Dominick. Yeah, now we'll get to the deck lists when we have a chance between games, as we wanted to get the match started. We know that you're here to watch Magic, not to hear us speculate on how they might sideboard or things like that. So we certainly wanted to not miss any action. But Grist comes in, makes a token, spilling over. Can we just swap that Hierarch from the graveyard with the one in play? I mean, come on.
You don't like the sketch art, Joe? You're really just battle. You're at war with these new arts.
I am.
These newfangled technology.
Yeah, who wants this?
Dragon's Rage Channeler, of course, has no good attacks. Typically a 3/3 with Delirium. No graveyard at all for Travis Dahl yet. So 2 mana up, representing potentially something like Counterspell, I'm sure is on Dominick Paolercio's radar. However, with Grist already in play before Counterspell could even become a factor, we are going to see Dominick continue to accrue advantage. We'll see if he wants to cash out Grist to answer Dragon's Rage Channeler, or if we're going to make another token, as here comes Wall of Roots, going to crack Verdant Catacombs. Clearly wants green mana, as Urborg would already produce black if that were what he wanted to use it for.
Well, Wall of Roots is great. If your opponent is, you think, holding up a counter, I mean, no one on earth wants to counter Wall of Roots, but it's perfect. It enables the deck. There's a, I believe there's a chord in Dominick's hand that allows it to be cast for more mana during the end step. Does help protect the Grist, so that token can actually attack with Exalted now. And just get in the way. Just be in the way. That's what Wall of Roots does. And it makes mana too. So here we go. Young Wolf.
And make mana at will. Yeah, Young Wolf. And like you said, there's a Chord of Calling in hand. So all these 1-mana creatures that you don't really want to counterspell, going to do a good job making mana at instant speed. And if Travis does something like even just play a cantrip to try to enable, the Dragon's Rage Channeler Delirium ability, then a Chord of Calling can come down right away. You can see Dominick counting up the totals of creatures really fast. Chord of Calling here would be for 3, not quite Yawgmoth territory, but Travis makes them.
So it's important. So Wall of Roots is worth 2 for Chord of Calling because it can make mana and tap. So it actually would be for 4. So
and no move below 2 mana for Travis means Dominick will hold on firing it off. As here comes another Young Wolf, going to go for the mediocre beatdown plan. It looks like.
What mediocre indeed? This whole deck is mediocre nonsense. Young Wolf. We've talked about this endlessly before. How Young Wolf is just how this card is playable. How, but it works great in this deck. I think Grist actually got the extra mill there.
Yeah, the flavor text, Joe. We hit an insect. We hit a Grist, and therefore we get 2 tokens. And looks like these are summoning sick, maybe lining up a Math is for Blockers flavor of attack. Just send stuff and let you figure out if your 1/1s are going to line up against my 1/1s. Young Wolf performing a little bit better as a 1/1 attacker than Dragon's Rage Channeler does as a 1/1 blocker. And of course, the Chord of Calling still represented as Dominick's last card in hand. So Travis suddenly in this bind where you need to have Counterspell up the entire time where you get Chord of Calling. And if you don't play anything, then you're just going to get beat down by Young Wolves for the entire game as Grist continues to accumulate card advantage.
Yeah, we've seen the Yawgmoth deck here at Nerd Rage a number of times, including Chris Smith winning with it in March. I don't know that I've ever seen it explode quite this way, quite this breadth of creatures in play here. I mean, he's just throwing around Travis here, and
there's just creatures everywhere.
Block. When have we ever seen a Murktide deck with no graveyard on turn 4? Unless it was just emptied by a Murktide.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, especially with a Dragon's Rage Channeler in play. Like, that card just is so efficient at filling up the graveyards, but it turns out Dominick's Planeswalker is the better card, it seems, from Modern Horizons 2 at filling up graveyards. As Chord of Calling is the mill, not quite an insect, no more flavor text for you, and looks like maybe an attack for 5 creatures.
Yeah,
Dom may be
Dominic's loading
considering
up here.
attacking with everything.
He's got a handful of cards here. I can actually say that a handful because that's how they're all
Quite
in hand.
literally a handful, absolutely.
In for
3
7.
Young Wolves, 4 tokens. Here you go, bonk.
I mean, this is he doesn't even need the Court of Calling, and Travis is just had nothing. Okay, can we get I think that was the first card in Travis's graveyard, but can we get that back on the camera's eye so we can see what actually is going on there, whether it happens, this game or not? We do need to know what's in the Murktide graveyard. And here we're going to have a removal spell. What are you going to do? Lightning bolt? What?
Young Wolf, see ya. Absolutely. Oh, how about 2 damage to Grist? How does that sound, Joe? Yeah. 2 surveil triggers.
How often have you ever seen a planeswalker take direct damage and then fall to still higher than its ultimate level?
Not often. That is a weird context of the game when you put it that way, as Unholy Heat is going to deal its 2 damage to Grist, but now no counterspell mana up, and I think Dom might be licking his chops as far as casting this Court of Calling goes.
Well, it was available there, I believe. Looks like 2 creatures, 3 land, the Wall of Roots. So it could have fired off there maybe, but maybe playing around Spell Pierce. Maybe feeling like he doesn't need to actually do anything here, as just this army of misfits is going to get it done anyway.
They think these Dragon's Rage Channelers are now active, now delirious, are required to attack, which would make that Unholy Heat for 2 damage on Grist make a lot more sense if you can take care of it with the remaining 6 power. But there's a lot of power cracking back when you have to attack. Is that even
desirable? I mean, them having to attack here?
I don't think that's desirable at all. I think you want to start blocking some 1/1s, Joe. The mediocre beats, as it said. As here comes another fetch land, putting Travis down to 9, a precarious life total given the onslaught of 1/1 creatures on Dominick's side of the field.
So with Cord still being a threat, Travis can't safely tap down on mana too far, and yet he's got to stop. There are 8 potential attackers, each with 1 power?
Right. I think there's a Ledger Shredder among other cards in Travis's hand. That card very good at blocking 1/1s, but it's only 1 card, as here comes Murktide Regent delving out the entire graveyard, it seems. Okay. Only 1 instant or sorcery among the group. 2 lands, an enchantment, and a creature among the other cards. So a 4/4 does do a good job blocking 1/1s. Counterspell still represented, but still only 1 blocker for Travis as we untap to Dominick's, I don't even know how many creatures this is, 5, 6, 7, 8 creatures that can attack.
Well, instead of fresh Grist here, I believe. So that's going to come down. I don't know if Travis can not counter this. Yep,
yeah, I can't let this continue to happen. So here's a counter spell. Going to go ahead and bin that Misty Rainforest. Taking a look at the second card here. And Expressive Iteration going to hit the bin too. Still 1 card away from Delirium. And Court of Calling going to be slammed. Travis is fine. You had it the entire time. I'm dead. I can't beat everything. Young Wolf beat down too strong, Joe. And this is not the first time we've seen the games play out like this.
No, we haven't. No, I know. And it's almost become just kind of a joke. Like these Yawgmoth decks and these Young Wolves and these tokens. And it's just a bunch of nonsense. And it just keeps winning. It won the March event. It looked good there. It's looked good other times. Dominick Paolercio, granted, Travis didn't exactly have the greatest draw ever. But
it wasn't bad, right? Dragon's Rage Channeler, Counterspell, lands to cast it. That's pretty good,
Unholy Heat. And the problem with Unholy Heat, there may have been, even if there is more removal in hand, what are you killing? There's nothing worth killing.
Yeah, that's the real problem. Unholy Heat, normally very good at killing powerful cards, but not a powerful card in sight. Nothing you want to kill, and 2 damage off Grist certainly doesn't feel good. So really, the width, we'll go with width. The width of Dominick's board state and the density of creatures produced by Grist and by just playing 1/1 Young Wolves out of hand just kind of made it to where there was no good targets for the removal spells from Travis's deck. So I don't know. I don't know if that's how this game normally plays out. I feel like, Dominick did a great job respecting Counterspell in that game and forcing Travis to hold up that 2 mana every single turn, threatening to grab at a Yawgmoth in instant speed. So tight play from both players, and another just funny conclusion from some mediocre beatdowns to seal up game number 1.
All right, let's quickly look at the sideboards here, or look at the deck list here before we get into game 2, because I know we didn't get a chance to see them in game 1. So what we're looking for here is answers to things going wide. Well, there are a couple.
I like Fury. I know I like Fury.
Mm-hmm. Fury will work. Explosives on 0 or 1 may work in different scenarios. Definitely could see that come in.
Be a Leyline fan?
I mean, I don't know. Like it stops the Yawgmoth combo.
It stops the Undying Value as well.
Yeah. I mean, neither one of those was
good.
neither one of those was required for Travis to lose that game. So even if he had one in play, he still might have lost. It does make your removal better.
It's true.
So,
and you do have the full 4 copies of Ledger Shredder in order to, potentially connive them away and get a counter on Ledger Shredder if you potentially draw them late. We do see kind of a non-traditional build here with 2 copies of Bloodmoon. We saw both of those in that main deck game floating around. So it looks like Travis expecting Bloodmoon to be pretty good. Makes a lot of sense with all the 4-colored Amulet running around. Don't imagine those are going to stay in the sideboard games.
No, probably not. But yeah, that's a good point. And there is a leyline.
Yeah, there it is.
It's a good point that Ledger Shredder does allow Travis to play cards that are not going to be good in every scenario because he doesn't get stuck with them.
Exactly.
So that can apply to
ley lines. Normally, the drawback is drawing them late because they suck.
Yeah.
Well, if you have loot effects, in this case, Ledger Shredder, which is a connive ability, they get pretty good, I'd say, because you can get rid of them even if they're bad.
All right, so let's see.
Turn 1 Dragon's Rage Channel. This time with the Mishra's Bauble follow-up. A lot more cards going to be in the graveyard here on turn 1 than we saw in game number 1. As Travis is going to get a look at the top card of Dominick's library. Looks like Endurance was revealed to Travis. Both players now aware of that information as Boseiju into Ignoble Hierarch again. Not the sketch one, just for you, Joe.
Yeah. So Boseiju into play here, and that seems like a card with the leyline on the board. Fairly valuable thing to have it in hand. So maybe there's another copy of Boseiju, or else Dominick just doesn't have a lot of lands this game. Another Bauble for Travis. So yeah, off to a much smoother start this game. Even able to attack. Whereas that was not the case last game.
No, Giants Rage Chiller attacked. It just wasn't a
not until like turn
opportune
7
time. Here's a Scalding Tarn played. Looks like we may have liked the card, given that we did not graveyard it with Surveil, and that means that this fetch land very unlikely to be cracked prior to a Mishra's Bauble draw, should there be one. Looks like Travis assessing his options, as here's a Lightning Bolt on Ignoble Hierarch.
All right, so Dominick, no thoughts of Grist or anything on turn 3 here. So maybe just something anemic like, I don't know, Young Wolf.
So much Young Wolf slander. Here is a Wooded Foothills, the land that was revealed off Mishra's Bauble to Travis. Now, only known information is Endurance. As here is, as you said, Young Wolf, the all-star from last game, a repeat performance that we're looking for here in this game. If you're a Dominick Paolercio, oh my gosh, fan. Apologies to any and all names that are butchered. I'm doing my best.
All right, so the fetch does come here, and Dragon Rage Channel looking to fly over for 3. Dominick really hasn't even got started yet this game, but the Endurance is pretty significant as a defender against Dragon Rage Channeler. It's preemptive against Murktide. That may be a little late if one comes down this turn. Okay, no, Expressive Iteration. So Endurance is actually going to be pretty valuable if Dominick has a 3rd land.
Yeah, Endurance, typically one of the better of the pitch elementals against the Murktide deck, being able to block with reach against things like Dragon's Rage Channeler. And of course, being able to obliterate graveyards to preemptively stop things like Murktide Regent, extremely valuable. Also cuts off Delirium. Typically seen as one of the more problematic cards for the Izzet Murktide deck. Looks like Spirebluff Canal reveal off of the Expressive Iteration. Going to go ahead and play that as our 3rd land. And looks like we may be sitting on Delirium finally. I see Instant Sorcery Artifact Land. That's a 3/3 that has to attack by my math, unless we are in main phase 2 already.
No, I believe you are right about that. I think it was already set up. Well, I guess there was no sorcery before the turn started, but yeah, I mean, there's no way Travis is willingly trying to set up a scenario where he gets to block, as blocking Young Wolf doesn't even do much. It just makes it bigger.
Well, it doesn't even. We have a leyline. That card's going to exile.
Oh, that's true. You're right. It does not get bigger. So blocking against it is actually decent. And so we may actually see the second Dragon Rage Channeler try and do that.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think this Young Wolf's going to be getting frisky in the red zone. Going to need some big draws here from Dom. Think something like a Grist.
Yeah, Grist will be good. We know the Endurance is there. That will be a huge win. If one of those actually makes
Urborg already in hand.
Yeah, there are plenty of land.
As here is a main phase endurance. Not going to wait and get that one counterspelled. No, thank you. Going to go ahead and fetch with Misty Rainforest. Likely grabbing a forest, if I had to guess, given the Urborg is in hand. That will be the selection. Shuffle those cards, put them on the bottom of your library, and reduce your Dragon's Rage channelers to being just 1/1s. Now, maybe there's some merit to attacking first. It's interesting that Dom respects his own Young Wolf more than a Dragon's Rage channeler from the opponent's side of the field, as indicated by how we sequence things that turn. Maybe this indicates that Young Wolf, a big part of whatever plan that Dom's got cooking up for the remainder of this game.
Well, that would imply then that he does have an answer in planning for the leyline. Interesting. Yeah. Now, another consequence of playing the Urborg is that if the leyline is dealt with, Travis could actually cast another one if he drew one.
That's very true.
Is actually probably never. This is probably the only scenario where that would be true.
Very true.
Yeah. So recognizing the damage that the let's see, Wall of Roots Rot there, we see it actually counterspelled this game.
Yep. Absolutely
so
not. No Wall of Roots for you. Puts 2 types in the yard. We do see the Expressive Iteration milled, surveilled into the graveyard off the Dragon's Rage Channeler, giving us land, sorcery, and instant, missing a single type for some 3/3 with flying Dragon's Rage Channelers. But those are actually very good right now with an Endurance in play threatening to block. As here is land number 5 for Travis, something like a Fury, and it is a Fury. A good option here. Now, we'll see if we're interested in just picking off the Endurance now, or if maybe we want to try for something like picking off the Young Wolf. Yeah, let's go ahead and get that out of my way. No, thank you. And Travis, likely not super interested in attacking Dragon's Rage Channelers into the Young Wolf either, as the turn passes back to Dom. We do see the Court of Calling sitting in hand right there. Birds of Paradise to pick up.
So there are tools to work with here for Dominick, but yeah, this leyline is really kind of crimping his ability to do what he wants. Still, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in play. So cord for another Endurance is possible here as Fury attacks in alone, and there is another hardcast.
Not just having Endurance. How's that? And here's Subtlety in response. A very powerful response, putting another threat into play and going to give Dom the option to either put it on top or bottom of his library.
And yeah, 6 across here. Dominick doesn't want to give up a bird or the Young Wolf, so ouch. This is a place where the leyline, it prevents the combo, sure, but it also just prevents Young Wolf being able to block twice. And so instead, Fury just comes over.
Absolutely.
That's a big chunk of Dominick's remaining life total.
Interesting to see. Fury. So the Endurance is going to be redrawn. You see Dom put it on top, elected not to fetch too. So we are just going to go ahead and play Endurance. Going to go ahead and main phase that one now. Not interested in more attackers with 3 power, as Dom's life total is dwindling down. So, but we do have a Subtlety and a Fury to check. So if Fury is attacked here, it's kind of an awkward spot. If you block with Endurance, you lose Endurance. You do make the trade and don't take any damage, but then you kind of unlock the rest of Travis's board, as this Endurance does a really good job holding back the rest of the attackers.
And yet you can't do anything else. This is almost a forced block. As Dominick, just chumping with Young Wolf or something is just not going to improve anything either. And here is a Ledger Shredder. Full art. Now, full art okay. I'm on board with.
You're on board with full arts.
Still identifiable as to what the card actually is. That Subtlety there, I'm used to that one by now, but,
It's full art, Joe.
Yeah.
It's literally a full art Subtlety.
No, I'm with this. I'm making a campaign. There's no art, 40 size font, typeface. That's just that's gonna be my new thing.
There's no way Magic is in the zip code of as popular as it is today without the beautiful art, the lovely individuals that produce Magic art for Wizards of the Coast have done. Come on, Jake.
Now that we've gotten to where we are, we don't need these crutches anymore, like artwork.
The crutches. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. The crutches. I'm here for it. as here is Spirebluff Canal. I'm going to go ahead and add another
Wow.
Dragon's Rage Channeler to the mix. Only creature in the graveyard. Travis, have enabled Delirium multiple times at this point in the game, really demonstrating the power of Dragon's Rage Channeler, as here is an instep chord for 4. Really only one kind of target in mind when you're talking about the Golgari Yawgmoth deck, and that is Yawgmoth himself, Thran Physician, entering play.
Yeah, I mean, that'll do it. Certainly that will help. I mean, something like Plague Engineer or Nightclubber would have worked fairly well here also, but I guess Yawgmoth probably the best one in almost all situations.
I would say so, especially when you're facing down 3 1/1s named Dragon's Rage Channeler. You can just pop those off all day long if you'd like. And we'll see exactly how Dom wants to sequence things. Remember, with Leyline of the Void in play, any creatures that get sacrificed do go away for good. But, with all of the creatures that Dom already has in play, there is a lot of potential for drawing cards and gunning down some creatures. Now, Dominic is already at a very little life total, so we'll see, if there's going to be some kind of attacks. Maybe we could do some blocks and then before damage, kill some stuff. Definitely worth it to be patient here, but Dom, in a much better position than he was pre-Yawgmoth, but not out of the woods quite yet, as here comes an attack for 4. And a third Endurance going to come down and a second Subtlety to stop it.
Wow.
All
right, so is there actually mana? So I think Dominic could actually recast the Endurance right now by...
Yeah, it looks like we might...
drawing off of Yawgmoth.
Try and do that. Yeah, it looks like we're going to put a counter on Ledger Shredder. Now, remember, that puts it down to a 0 power attacker, but if he goes to cast this Endurance again, that is second spell, and that will trigger Ledger Shredder, provided it is remembered, and it looks like it is. So here's Ledger Shredder. Conniving, discarding a Leyline, like we talked about. Get that counter out of here. No, thank you.
So then the graveyard gets wiped away, and then Shredder should go to having no counters on it.
Yeah,
right?
correct. It should connect for 1 point, given that the block indicated was a Endurance block on Subtlety. The non-summoning sec one as we go back to Dominic's turn.
And the counter should just be off the Shredder now, because negative counters and positive counters do annihilate each other. So that should just be removed, I believe.
I believe you're correct as well. And I believe they're talking about that right now. I'm pretty sure this isn't something you can miss.
No, I don't think so.
There may be a judge call anyway, just to verify that, though. Yeah, all right. Yeah, we're going to call a judge. Make sure that's correct. I do believe it can't be missed, but we do have wonderful judges that are very accomplished that will sort this out for us. Of course, we can speculate and what have you. I think you're probably supposed to still have the counter, but it is worth asking. It's always worth calling a judge if you're ever unsure of anything.
Yeah. The Connive can certainly be missed, but the Connive was utilized and just the counter was missed. And that is probably a function of the resolution of the ability. So
I agree.
Maybe not.
The one life point going to matter a lot here, though, so definitely worth sorting out. Remember, we do have a Yawgmoth in play. No combo lines available. However, those Dragon's Rage are all 1/1s, and there's only a creature in the yard, so killing them doesn't really do anything to make them bigger ever. So you can just start gunning those down.
All right. Well, they're still sorting this out. Judge probably asking, well, what's happened since then? And Dominic saying, well, I drew the one card in my hand. So if we need to back up, I can put this card back on top of the deck. So we will await that being fixed up, but we will make every effort to not miss any of the action once it is resolved. But absolutely. I mean, we're in a board state now with Yawgmoth on the board and no Delirium after something like 4 Endurances resolving for Dominic that I don't know. I'm not sure I would even be comfortable saying who's ahead right now.
Yeah, it's a really strange game. I mean, Endurance obviously has been very impressive. Have done a lot of work to mitigate the onslaught from the, obviously multitude of Dragon's Rage Channelers that have been drawn. And we did mention that earlier in this broadcast, talking about how Endurance lines up against the Murktide deck. Now, it is interesting to me how this matchup has played out. We've seen Yawgmoth interplay and not be able to combo. And we saw game 1 won by Dominic without ever even trying really to, I mean, I guess he did put a Yawgmoth in play, but didn't really need it. And I think that speaks to how this matchup plays out. And I think Dom is very well aware of that. when you take a look at the composition of the Yawgmoth deck, the composition of the Murktide deck, the Murktide deck's trying to play this tempo game where you answer a few creatures and then fly over and beat down, and that's how you get things done. Whereas Dom understands that you can just play a bunch of 1/1s really fast and overwhelm the removal and be able to still, despite that, race the flyers because you have more power than single spot removal spells can answer.
Mm-hmm. All right, so if that actually is still being resolved, maybe we can go back to the sideboard and see what Dominick actually has to deal with Leyline in the Void, because that is preventing him from really just potentially ending this game or doing a lot of work. So what do we see? We see a lot of endurance. We knew that.
There's a second copy available. There's one already in play. Outland Liberator looks to be one of the best options. Can search for that one using the various Court of Callings and Eldritch Evolutions or what have yous.
So it may just be that one Outland Liberator that, like you're saying, can be tiered for, and then there's one more copy of Boseiju. So
yeah, well, there's a Force of Vigor in the sideboard, but I don't think that's a card you traditionally want in this matchup, right?
I wouldn't think
normally
so
the Izzet deck is trying to beat you with instant sorcery spells. They're not really trying to beat you as much with artifacts and enchantments. So I think Force of Vigor might be a little too narrow.
All right, so we are back at.
Looks like a game rules violation is going to be issued for almost certainly failure to maintain. I mean, obviously we can get the full ruling eventually. We're just kind of describing blocks, I think.
Well, yeah. So, but I think blocking has already happened because the subtlety is still in the graveyard. So, well,
maybe he's talking about how he would have blocked the Ledger Shredder instead had the counter been removed.
Well, that would require actually rewinding to that point. And Dominick, I believe, had no cards in hand until he untapped and drew. Okay, there goes the card. I was just going to say, if they're backing up, then that card needs to leave his hand.
Correct. It looks like it did. Yeah, it looks like we are reversing here. So we're reversing to the attack. The counter is going to be removed, and I believe everything, like Endurance, is going to be allowed to reblock as is fit, given the how the board state should be, which makes a lot of sense.
And now I think they're confused on if we fix it, is there a die here or not? Because they can't remember anymore. But I believe the correct answer is there should not be.
Yeah, he's talking about how the card that was discarded. I think they're looking for the card that was discarded, which is now at the bottom of the library, given the Endurance, which should just be a ley line. And I believe there was another card as well. But either way, I don't think that actually matters. Like, we know there's a counter. We know the ETB is still going to happen. So we let the block happen. The same block's going to happen. Dominick is going to take 8 point of damage. And we're going to continue play as normal. A very reasonable response to fix things. And we can go ahead and proceed with the game, I believe.
So really, the outcome of the change is that Dominick takes 1 damage, which he wouldn't have taken otherwise.
Correct.
No other real impact on the proceedings. So Dominick will fall to 5, I believe. He was at 7, took 1 from the Yawgmoth trigger, and then now down to 5 from the Shredder point. We'll be drawing this Wall of Roots again.
Wall of Roots drawn. That is another creature for Yawgmoth to consume in order to start to fight down Travis's board state. But it is worth noting that, like, if you start going really, hard on this whole Yawgmoth thing, you kind of put yourself in a lightning bolt range. Travis does have 1 card remaining in hand, and there's no way you're boarding out any copies of your lightning bolts. So you kind of have to be a little precarious, I guess, with your life total and make sure that you don't expose yourself to, getting punked out by something like a lightning bolt here.
Right.
At the late
No,
stage
you're right about
game.
that. Although we may be nearing the point where Dominick can't do anything about that. Ooh, okay, here's an Expressive
Iteration off the top. That's 3 Surveil triggers, and Dom, head in hands. We got to figure something out because there's no way we can let that happen. These Dragon's Rage channelers are about to get very, very large.
So what creatures here can Dominick give up, or what's the easiest one to give up? It's whatever it is, probably needs to float mana first in case something convenient comes off the top.
Correct. Looks like tap Dryad Arbor for green, maybe. Go ahead and pick off that Dragon's Rage channeler. I'll lose a life draw card. That's a Grist. That's a pretty good one.
Well, it's not going to help this turn, though. Each of these activations is a cost of life point. I don't know that Dominick's going to get out of this turn.
Yeah? I mean, 3 Surveils is a lot with the Expressive Iteration. We're essentially looking at the top 6 if you're looking for something like a Lightning Bolt, which now that Dominick is down to 3 is potentially on Travis's radar as, hey, this just wins the game. So you probably want to look for that particular card. And it looks like with the birds to block, we're good to just let these Surveils happen. Dragon's Rage Channeler number 4 added to the graveyard, considering the second Surveil. Remember, 3 Surveils total due to this Expressive Iteration.
Yeah, so assuming Delirium is found, then
Ledger Shredder. All creatures all the way down, huh?
We'll see.
Left the last card on top. Steam Vents among the mix. Looks like Steam Vents is going to exile very quickly, choosing which card to put in hand. Remember, sorcery going to be added to this mix as far as Delirium goes, no matter what, with the resolution of this Expressive Iteration. So still missing instant and land, but those are 2 of the easier ones to get. Steam Vent's going to come into play on tapped. I think that's number 3 as far as Steam Vents go for Travis. Going to follow up with a Consider. That will trigger both creatures with triggered abilities. I guess I'll excel through them. Do fine. That'll trigger the Dragon's Rage Channeler and the Ledger Shredder. You can stack those however you choose. Probably want to do the Surveil first. That way your connive is as informed as possible.
Okay, so yeah, a land. We need a land to turn it on, right? That's just to turn on Delirium. Although it's getting to the point where it doesn't even matter.
There is a land, Spirebluff Canal, going straight to the graveyard.
Okay.
Delirium active.
So I think this is pretty much ends it. Even if Dominick survives the turn at 1 life, which seems like a real possibility, he won't be able to activate Yawgmoth next turn, even to start a combo, because he's already at 1.
Well, so hold on.
And
we can line up 2 flying blockers, right? We can put a counter on the Ledger Shredder after blocks, and then you can discard a card and proliferate. I think that might let you live. And that appears to be the kind of block we're lining up. Going to make a mana here. Sacrifice, put a counter on Ledger Shredder.
I forgot about the ability to proliferate. You are correct about that.
Court of Calling the pickup.
Ooh. Okay. Well, maybe this is more interesting than it appeared.
Go to damage. Take 0. Or maybe not take damage. Still thinking. Yeah, go to damage. Take 0. And no follow-up. Court of Calling can be for 2. Response. Here's a counterspell.
I feel like Dominick
there was a floating mana, right? From the birds. Could just say before we switch phases. It wouldn't be in step.
Oh, maybe.
I believe it's the floating mana from the birds. You did indicate that he floated a mana, so I suspect that's what happened. Grist in hand does threaten to take out the Dragon's Rage Channeler. Ignoble Hierarch, the pickup. So Dom kind of has the board stabilized with what we know about what's in hand, but still just dead to a Lightning Bolt off the top at basically any point. No counter spells from the Yawgmoth deck.
All right, so Grist into play. Pluses.
Make a 1/1. Pass the turn. Do still have the endurance to check the Dragon's Rage Channeler. And even if the Ledger Shredder gets a counter, that's not going to be quite good enough to dispatch of Dominick, as very quickly surveilling that card of the graveyard. Didn't get a good look on that one. I'll keep that one. Looks like an Unholy Heat, the pickup. Solid follow-up. As here's Unholy Heat, targeting endurance.
Looks like it landed.
You keep saying this, Joe, and it keeps not being true. So we'll see what Dom can cook up for us in response. Reaching for the token might suggest another Court of Calling here.
Or it might just suggest a Yawgmoth draw. Yeah, it's just a Desperation Yawgmoth draw.
Desperation, he says, as here is a draw. I think if you proliferate, you live, right?
No, because the endurance dies, and there's only 1 blocker.
Oh, but you take 1. You die to Xaxes. Yeah, you take 1 and die. All right. Okay.
All right. Well, I may have gone errant with some of that analysis there, but it does even up the match.
There's a lot going on there. The Yawgmoth deck has just a lot of moving parts. A very strange deck, a really cool deck, and honestly one I'm excited to watch every time it appears on screen.
It's fun. It has cool. It's a cool deck. There's tutors for Yawgmoth. I mean, you can generally find it, and then It's just up to the inner moving pieces to make things work. But that Leyline of the Void played a big role in grabbing that game for Travis. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I agree with you. The Force of Vigor doesn't seem great, but it is an answer to the Leyline.
Yeah, but it doesn't answer a lot else. We'll see. We'll see exactly how things play out. We did see multiple ley lines. Dominic saw multiple ley lines out of Travis's deck there in game 2. So, he does have that knowledge now that it is there, it's present, and can reassess his sideboarding for game 3 if that's not something that was on his radar. But no matter what, Dominic going to be back on the play game 3, likely reaching for another explosive draw like we saw in game 1. It took him a little too long to get started, although Yawgmoth did a lot of work to catch him up. I mean, Dex called Yawgmoth. I get the joke, but he didn't need it to win game 1. So we'll see exactly what he can piece together in game 3 here at NRG Minnesota.
All right. Players have presented, so let's go ahead and go back down to the table, see how this finishes up. We're in round 5. Both these players are 4-0. A long way to go, as we did have 302 players. Not only we have
there's a turn 0 ley line, Birds of Paradise for Dominic. Could potentially represent a turn 2 Grist, which Counterspell does not catch. Going to need one of his couple copies of Spell Pierce. We're going to go ahead and take care of that bird, Unholy Heat. Get that one in exile, please. Maybe a Wall of Roots is our follow-up. Looking between Strangleroot Geist and Wall of Roots. Does elect to play the Wall of Roots. Going back to Travis.
Okay, so yeah, Strangleroot Geist. So yeah, Dominic thinking I don't need to press early damage here. We'll just establish a base. Has Endurance, has Yawgmoth. Has Grist, like you were saying. Here is the Strangleroot Geist.
And almost respond. Thinking about it. No, thank you. Let's go ahead and bolt that one. Not going to come back from the Undying trigger thanks to Leyline of the Void on turn 0. And looks like Dom will shock in a land. Let's see what 2-mana follow-up he has in store for us here. Looks like nothing. Just a passing of the turn. Could just be representing a Court of Calling for one.
I suppose that could be the case.
Oh, Spell Pierce can't get the Grist, Joe. It's a creature. You get the joke? You need an Essence Scatter. I did not get the joke.
Yes, that would do it.
I did not get the joke. Thankfully, we have Twitch chat here to completely correct me. Berate me, if you will.
Babe, you're doing a good job. We're doing the best we can. He was alone.
It's not very good, but it's my best. Here's Expressive Iteration.
As long as we're not offending anyone, it's fine. I'm comfortable with us being wrong about things, here and there.
That's fair. I'm offending myself at being wrong, so I guess I don't really count. I'm part of the process here. As Subtlety going to exile, can't imagine that one's getting cast.
Most likely.
Expressive Iteration also in the graveyard.
Pitch cast this turn. If Dominic flashes in an Endurance at the end of the turn, Subtlety could pitch cast. I mean, there's no way I think that would actually be worth doing, but it is possible, I guess.
I mean, as you said, here's an Endurance. Can you even pitch cast it from exile?
I have no idea.
I don't know either. Well, either way, here's an Endurance. That card is going to get pitch cast. All right. Well, there it goes. I'll put that one on top. Thank you. Go ahead and get Counterspell out the way.
That was a new interaction for me. I have certainly never seen that happen before.
Likewise, I don't think I've ever seen an elemental pitch cast of an Expressive Iteration. It's a cool little trick.
I don't just mean that. That wasn't just an elemental. That was a Solitude that only had a target if something else was cast.
And something else was cast.
Yeah.
And it was pitch cast after revealing that, okay, well, still going to cast it. And we did main phase it after the fact. Flooded Strand going to become the only type in the graveyard of land after the Endurance go ahead and blows up that graveyard. Wall of Roots going to get another counter. And the turn is coming back to Travis.
Okay, so Travis is going to need a creature. So obviously a Dragon Rage or a Shredder would be great. Murktide is stranded in hand for the moment. Well, okay, Expressive Iteration certainly is a way to rebuild the graveyard and get things rolling once again.
And looks like a third Expressive Iteration among the mix. Dragon's Rage Channeler pretty quickly exiled there. Can play that one off of our untapped land. Not getting a great look at the cards that were selected to go top and bottom, but Dragon's Rage Channeler appears to be the follow-up. Only 2 types in the yard. We are looking at a 1/1. Leyline of the Void, among other cards in Travis's hand, is a tap Spirebluff Canal and just a passing of the turn. Looks like maybe a second copy of Endurance in Dominic's hand. And Wooded Foothills the draw.
I mean, it certainly could be. Yeah, it looks like it. And there was, I believe, 3 in the board, plus there was probably one in the main. So he may very well have a full set of access to a full set of them at this point of the match.
Very quickly fetching. Going to go ahead and Court of Calling. Interested to see, I don't know if we've already gone past the Dryad Arbor, but I feel like the Dryad Arbor is a better option there, giving you another creature for the Yawgmoth. This Court of Calling is going to find. But no matter what, here comes Yawgmoth, the namesake of the deck. Now with Dragon's Channeler only being a 1/1 creature, can threaten to go ahead and pick Dragon's Channeler off now. And based on verbal cues here, it looks like that is what is going to happen. We'll see what Dom's sacrificing. Likely this Wall of Roots.
Yeah, you're good call on that Dryad Arbor there. I mean, that would be basically sacrificing a forest in order to pick that off, as it would have been enabled the casting of the cord at the same rate. And yeah, so a lot of life points to play with for this time for Dominick. Just an endurance in play, so not a lot of creatures to sacrifice. And Leyline's still on the board, but doesn't seem too bad. As well,
Ledger Shredder with an Expressive Iteration follow-up. We're going to go ahead and connive.
Mm-hmm. So let's see if that Leyline gets pitched. There it
certainly
goes.
Does. And here's the counter. Yep, we're not done yet. We got more cards to move around, Travis. And we're going to go ahead and resolve this Expressive Iteration. Expressive Iteration number 3. Done a lot of iterating. Yawgmoth, though, presenting as much, if not more, card advantage than these Expressive Iterations have offered.
Mm-hmm.
Bauble, pretty quickly exiled.
But Yawgmoth,
get a great look at the other two.
With Proliferate can take down something like Shredder, but it's not going to be easy to do something like that. And
well, it's interesting you mentioned Proliferate, because it actually gets pretty hard to proliferate on Ledger Shredder because of the lifting counters rule you mentioned. You go to put a counter on, it just lifts. You don't get to proliferate it. So that's going to be maybe a little obnoxious if that's something that Dominick's going to try to get accomplished. But for now, Endurance is going to do a really good job holding off the Ledger Shredder. And we do know there's another copy of Endurance in Dominick's hand as Endurance comes into the red zone. Maybe suggest that Dominick's got something up his sleeve. Copy of Scavenging Ooze among the mix. Going to go ahead and deploy that one.
That's excellent. That's a nice thing to proliferate.
Very, very good. Agreed. Gain life, cut some types down. Go ahead and get that Dragon's Rage Channeler right now. Get that life points going. And then, of course, if there's ever something like an Unholy Heat, we can cut down the types to where it doesn't even die to that. As you can see there. 2 mana, 2/2, originally printed in Commander 2011 set, I believe. So this card wasn't even legal in Modern on first printing.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I know that. I remember way back, I traded 2 Divining Tops for a Scavenging Ooze.
Wow. That's not a good trade by today's rates, Joe. I think you messed that one up.
Is either one of those cards worth anything at this point?
Top's a lot of money, Joe. Commander, come on. Get it together.
Well, Tom, I remember going to as this game. Okay, Scavenging Ooze was picked off by a lightning bolt.
No creatures to eat in response.
In Travis's graveyard. I remember going to Starseed event in 2011 in Southern California and trading like a dozen Divining Tops for like a Tundra and a number of other cards that I needed for my Cephalid deck at the time.
Nice.
And Soul Rings. That was how I paid for everything basically at that event.
Yeah, it's very fitting for you, Joe Lissette, to have had your primary currency be Sensei's Divining Tops.
Yeah, and that was a year before Miracles.
Did we just watch the Scavenging Ooze die without getting sacrificed to Yawgmoth? I'm not really sure what happened there. Didn't really miss that. But either way, Unholy Heat is going to take down Yawgmoth. I believe Lightning Bolt took down Scavenging Ooze. And here comes Ledger Shredder, having shredded away a Subtlety for 3 points of damage. And here is 2 mana. Looks like we're reaching for the graveyard. Smells like Murktide time. Deck's called Murktide. Deck's called Yawgmoth. Well, Yawgmoth's had its time. Well, it sounds like it's time for old Murky. The sketch art on that one.
Deck may as well be called Endurance, because that feels like the card he's drawn most copies of, and that's why there hasn't been any Murktide sightings up till this point. But now that it's in play, that gets harder. Plus, and now Endurance on Travis's graveyard will actually grow the Murktide.
Oh, there's no instant sorceries right now, but should there be, that would be not great. And here is, as you mentioned, the copy of Endurance. And we're going to respond by casting Consider, which is going to put an instant sorcery in the yard and grow the Murktide Regent.
We'll see. We'll see. Dominick may just target himself, or just that would be.
Well, we're
pretty
still on the
amusing. Are we
stack.
growing the Shredder here?
I believe so. I believe we're
Yeah.
casting an Unholy Heat, targeting the endurance that has already resolved, shredding away a Ledger Shredder off the top. Don't even get the option to keep that one. Put another point of power. Endurance going to go away.
Oh, no. He is going to target. So that
Well, I think he said, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I think he's like, wait. This might not go my way. Well, it may not matter either way, Dom. Yeah, it looks like Dom does elect to just go ahead and nuke his own graveyard. Now at 4 life, a draw has to be a really good one. Not sure what he can draw. Quick passing of the turn. Spirebluff Canal doesn't add anything to the mix. And here comes the Flyers. Here comes a 3rd copy of Endurance. But these have to be chumps, unfortunately.
Yeah. There's probably no digging out from here. There's a Grist. That will get rid of one of the Flyers, but they both have enough power to kill Dominick in one shot. And that will do it. Travis Dahle will take down this fairly entertaining match to improve to 5-0. Congratulations to him and his Murktide deck, powered by a full play set of Ledger Shredders.
Yeah, and that was really cool to see, as we don't normally see cards like Leyline of the Void in the Murktide deck, especially with the recent printing of a card like Unlicensed Hearse. You see a lot of the Izzet decks reaching for that as their primary graveyard hate for a variety of reasons. Leyline of the Void seems to be a very purposeful choice by Travis and came up huge here in ways that I don't think Unlicensed Hearse would be able to.
Perhaps not. I mean, Hearse is not going to have the same capability of dealing with. I mean, for example, it's like if you have multiple Undying creatures, you sack one, Hearse eats it, sack the other one, you're good to go.
Exactly.
And Leyline trumps that completely. And Ledger Shredder, the ability to not be punished for drawing uncastable cards later in the game, can have a big impact on how these decks are constructed going forward. Anyway, we've reached the end of the round. Time is on the verge of being called or has been called already. So we are going to step away. We'll be back for round 6. 3 more rounds of Swiss to go, and then the elimination rounds will be here all evening. Come on back.